And there's quite a lot of items to cover as well, so we can let's get started pretty quickly. All right, so with that all said and done, my name is Logesh Balasubramanian, and I'm Managing Director at PeopleSoft, leading the PeopleSoft HCM and HR technology projects and activities. So just trying to get things all settled down here. Excellent. So, all right, I see there are a few more people joining in. All right, so we'll get going now. And in terms of, thanks for joining the session today on PeopleSoft Chatbots. So there's quite a lot of information we have over the next hour to cover. So let's get moving on with that. And once again, I'm Logesh Balasubramanian, and I have been consulting with PeopleSoft for over 17 years now, leading and consulting various PeopleSoft projects. PeopleSoft HCM and HR technology are my core focus areas, and this session around chatbots is essentially falls under exactly those two areas, HR and HR technology. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to share some of the knowledge and experience around using chatbots for PeopleSoft HCM. With that said, before we jump onto the topic, a brief introduction about who we are. SpearMC, we are an Oracle Platinum partner and headquartered in Bay Area, founded in 2004. Right now spread across the continent, USA and Canada, with consultants and clients across the country. And we are, as an organization, entirely focused on PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft applications are our primary focus area, and our services, we offer services across the space for PeopleSoft customer, meeting any of your requirements across different product pillars, different industry verticals, and so forth. Specifically relevant to this session is our specialization around the emerging technologies areas, such as the Elasticsearch, Kibana Analytics, and chatbots and digital assistants, which we are going to talk about. So if you have any questions, any assistance needed in any of these areas, then feel free to get connected with us. Our contact details are as part of this slide deck, and also check out our exhibitor showcase as well. With that said, throughout this conference, there are multiple sessions presented by me and my colleagues on various of these topics. So feel free to check out those items as well. With that said, let's get started with the topic of discussion today. Before in talking about how to deploy PeopleSoft chatbots, how to get it ready for your production environment, I want to go through a very detailed demo about what does the PeopleSoft chatbots and digital assistants, what does it offer, and how can you make use of them, what are the different use cases for those chatbots before talking about how to go ahead and deploy, right? So the first portion of this session is going to be more of a demo activity, followed by a slide deck presentation around the process of getting it deployed. Okay. With that, let me get started with the demo. All right, so for this demo activity, I'm going to be using PeopleSoft HCM environment running 859 tools version. When it comes to chatbots, there are some certain specific system requirements, so I will be showing that as part of my slide deck. But this is a latest version of HCM environment running the latest tools version as well. So for the focus of the session today, there are two items I wanted to quickly clarify. There is a term that is used as chatbots, and there is a term digital assistant. And for the demo today, we are going to be discussing and showing the digital assistant. And digital assistant is essentially, consider it like a single unified window that can orchestrate the conversation between multiple chatbot skills. So essentially, when you have various chatbot skills for different functionalities, digital assistant is like an overarching a framework that controls the conversations between these chatbots. So in this example use case, let's say I have logged in as an employee coming into the HR system. You see there is a widget on the right-hand bottom of corner of the screen that's green in color. That is the widget to invoke the chatbot or digital assistant. I want to quickly call out a couple of things. Everything that you are going to see in this demo is pretty much delivered out of the box functionality. This hasn't been custom built. This is as delivered functionality, and I will call out wherever there are opportunities to personalize and enhance the chatbot skills. And the first item of that nature is the branding of this digital assistant. So as an employee, when you roll out a functionality to your employee, you want it to be more tailored to your organization requirements. So in this example, as you can see here, we called out this digital assistant as our organization assistant, PMC digital assistant. And I just named this chatbot like DD. The name that the chatbot comes with, or the digital assistant comes with, is Picasso. It's the PeopleSoft Intelligent Chat Assistant. But you can choose the way you want to name it, the way it should be saluting your applicants, the way it should be even minor items like logos and brandings, right? All of that is personalization we will talk about in terms of deploying it. So you can take this delivered chatbot functionality and completely make it specific to your organization. So in this case, I'm just calling this digital assistant DD as a personal assistant for employees. So what can this personal assistant do? As of today, based on the delivered functionalities, there is chatbot skills for various modules, and we have enabled all of those chatbot skills in this particular environment. So you can see here it starts with absence assistant, which is for absence management module. Benefit assistance for benefits, base benefits and benefits administration module. Employee directory for the company directory and org chart functionality in core HR module. Expense inquiry as part of your PeopleSoft expenses module. Payroll assistant for North American payroll, and requisition for your PeopleSoft ePro and requisition module. Now, depending upon what modules, PeopleSoft modules you use, those are the chatbots. It will be easier for you to enable because those modules, those chatbots are coupled with those module functionalities. So in this example, I have enabled all of these delivered modules. Now, as an organization, let's say if you're using a PeopleSoft HCM system, some core modules like benefits and payroll are the most used functionality. So I'll take a few examples and walk through how does the chatbot engage or interact with the employee, right, with a couple of use cases. So the first use case I want to go through is, let's say as an employee that is using this chatbot for the first time, let's say they are not aware of what all this chatbot can do, then the chatbot can guide them through a conversation, right? So for example, I'm a benefit assistant, and let's say if I, as an employee, I have a question related to my benefits, then I can look at this benefit assistant, and there are a few things it highlights that it can help with, right? It can show the contact info of the admin or look at current enrollments. I click on my current enrollments. There are further options that are given to me. Let's say I want to look at my benefit plan details, and then it provides all the plan details. Now, this is where a very important thing to understand is the chatbot already knows who I am as an employee because I have invoked this chatbot after I have logged into the application. So it knows my user ID, it knows my employee ID. So all the information that is shown on this chatbot is specific to me. So the plans that I see here are the plans that I'm enrolled into. It doesn't give me a generic list of plans that are available in the organization. It is giving me the list that I'm enrolled into. Let's say I came here to check something about my 401k. I click on savings plans, 401k, and I can see my 401k details. And let's say I wanted to check specifically around how am I, how have I set up my beneficiaries for 401k. A chatbot can guide all the way to get that information, right, up into the final granular information. Now, let's say I came in here And as an employee, I came in here to look at what was my current setting, and I also want to make some changes to it. Let's say I want to change my beneficiary designation. So let me go in here and say, I want to update my beneficiary. So this is one way Chatbot can interact, where it says, you can update your beneficiary on a particular page. You want me to take you there, right? So the inquiry information, to show the information in the system, the chatbot was able to go and get all that information. But to change the information, it's actually giving me an option to say, I know where you can change that information. Do you want me to take me there? So let's say I choose take me there, and it takes me to the benefit summary page where I can go. Oh, looks like there is a bit of Okay, let me mute all the participants so that it's much more easier to manage. All right, if any of you have any questions and want to talk about it, just please do raise your hand in the Zoom and I will unmute as well, or you can unmute yourself if you need to. All right, so it actually took me to the page where I can make the changes, but the conversation is still ongoing. I haven't exited that. So let's say this is what I wanted to update. I wanted to change my beneficiary percentages. So instead of 60 and 40, I'm splitting it 50 and 50 between my beneficiaries. So let me just to quickly show you the information, say dependent beneficiary and beneficiary designation. Now, if I check that information back again, it has been updated to 50 and 50. The reason I'm showing you this is all the information that is returned by this chatbot is real time. It is the latest data that is in the system. So I just went in and updated the beneficiary designations in another page, and just an example, it is now reflecting in my chat window over here. So as I said, the data is real time and the data is tailored to the user who is accessing the chatbot. Okay, primarily because it is a chatbot that is intended for employees as their digital assistant. Now, what the process that I walked through is an example of how an employee can interact with the chatbot, and the chatbot can guide them through to the information they are looking for. Now, that is one use case of it. Let me pick up another example. Let's say as an employee, I have logged into the system to find something very specific, right? I already know what I'm looking for. I just want to get the data rather than being led through a conversation by a chatbot. So let's say I'm looking for what was my dental deduction, right? That's my question. What's my dental deduction? Chatbot can respond with that specific response as well. So there is no options given. It basically, the question was, what's my dental deduction? And here is your info. Your latest deduction for dental plan is so forth, and it was taken on. This was the last date it was taken on, right? So chatbot can provide that specific exact information we're looking for as well. So the couple of examples we saw are related to the benefit module. So let me say, let me also give you some scenarios on the payroll side of things. So let's say I want to review my pay stub and view pay stub. Chatbot can provide a summary level information like in here. These are my gross tax and deductions, but I want to view the detailed payslip, and I can click and it loads the payslip paycheck page. And if you have the paycheck to be an online page, that will show up. If you have set it up to be a PDF paycheck, then that would show up. So depending upon how you are set up, that information is going to show up. When there are multiple options and multiple set of information, let's say show my bank accounts, then all right, let me type it differently. Show my direct deposits. Oops. Okay. I will talk about the various versions I typed in and explain that how it works, but just follow through with me here. Let's say when you have multiple options around information like bank deposits. So in here it shows information such as this is how I have set up my direct deposit. So there is a specific account number 1 that gets $1,000, account number 2 that gets 5%, account number 3 that gets 10%, account number 4 that gets the remaining balance. So when there is multiple sets of data, you can see the card view that it automatically adopts to bring in that information, right? Just a quick reminder, all of that I'm showing here is delivered out of the box, okay? Now, in addition to fetching that information, the employee-specific data in the system, Chatbot can also be set up to answer various questions the employee may have. Like for example, when is open enrollment, right? When does it start? That's just a question. And that's not specific to one employee. That's very generic to the organization. So the response is your open enrollment for 2021 starts on this particular date. These are just some dummy data in here. So when you set up your actual open enrollment definition, those start and end dates are going to be coming up in here. Now, this is an example where we are basically answering the question based on some information stored in PeopleSoft, like the open enrollment definition. However, Chatbot can also respond to an employee with information that is very generic, not just in PeopleSoft. Let's say many of your benefits are handled in PeopleSoft, but you have some benefits that are handled outside PeopleSoft. Let's say you might be having some health-related wellness plans, things like that, that is not entirely maintained in PeopleSoft. But you could have a simple FAQ, like frequently asked questions, that you can train the chatbot with, and ask a question, and chatbot can respond with an answer that's not based on info that is in PeopleSoft. It will be based on a simple question and answer library, right? So chatbot can also work as a knowledge base in that instance, addressing any question that employee may have throughout the business process, not just based on what is in PeopleSoft, but that entire business process, any question employee may have, chatbot can be trained to do that. And it's basically using a question library that you create and upload, train the chatbot, and it can respond to employee questions based on that. And the final use case I want to quickly touch upon is ability for chatbot even to update data. Not all delivered chatbot skills in, let's say, benefit payroll modules are built to update information, but there are some examples like absence assistant. That chatbot skill can actually help employees submit an absence request, not just view the request, but also submit the request. So I'll just show you how that process works. Let's say I want to check what's my vacation balance, say absence balances. I have vacation balance hours as of 331 and my balance is 922 hours. So let's say I want to request absence. And the question is, when does your absence begin? Let's say it is 7th October 2021. When does it end? 8th October 2021. What type of absence am I requesting? Let's say I want to book a vacation. Does you have any partial days in your absence? Say no. And choose the reason. It is vacation. Is there any other comments I want to add? No. So basically, it had a bunch of questions to collect the information. Instead of me filling up a form, it's basically collecting that information, and the final confirmation is I'm requesting a vacation absence from October 7 to October 8 for a duration of 16 hours. Do I wish to proceed? Yes, and that submits the absence, has been submitted. So instead of going to a page and doing the transaction, all of that information has been captured here. Now, just to do a quick recap of all that we have done, started with an example of how a chatbot can lead a conversation and direct an employee to a specific information, or basically look for an specific information when an employee has a very specific question. provide them various options when there is multiple data elements, uh, provide answers that are not just specific to their data, but more generic information to answer any of their questions. And finally, collect information to submit a transaction as well. And finally, let's say it's typical for any of our conversation with digital assistants these days, even outside work. At some point, there might be things that you would want to talk to an administrator or a person. Not all conversations can be fully addressed, or questions, issues, concerns can be fully addressed by a bot. You would want to have an option to talk to an agent, right? And let's say that there is a need for that. There are delivered chatbots can answer the question like, let's say if an employee has, who does I talk to? In this case, I'm asking who is my benefits admin because I might have a question, and provide the contact information of that person. Now, if you do have an internal contact center employee that employee can call into, then they can be linked, their contact numbers can be linked to the chatbot to even actually hand over the call to them, right? That functionality is also available using the digital assistant. But in this example, I'm just showing where it's showing the contact number. An employee clicks on it. If your browser is set up to initiate a call, it can even do that. Right? You can get a call initiated right from the browser if it is set up to do. So that sort of completes sort of a demo of what all the delivered chatbot and digital assistant can do. And everything that you have seen so far is delivered out of the box for the chatbot skills. Now, the second part of the session, I want to talk about what's the process, what all you need, what is the process for you to make use of all of this functionality, and how do you go about it? So we'll talk through that. But before that, if you have any questions about anything that you have seen so far, feel free to type it in either in the Zoom window, or if you are on the Audible app on the Quest site, then please do put in information there as well. Okay, let me just quickly check if there are any questions. All right, nothing so far. So let's move on to the next topic. Start with the demo, and we just completed that, and talk about the value proposition of chatbots. So pretty much in terms of whatever you just saw in terms of a demo today are the different value propositions. Starts with user experience. So you might have noticed I had various questions and activities that I did in the system across 3 different modules: benefits, payroll, and absence management. And I did not navigate anywhere in the application. I was on my home page. I was on a single window and went through a whole set of activities without having to go anywhere. So basically, the conversation and the user interface, everything is completely different, where it is an interactive, engaging user experience where I know my things are getting done, and I don't have to remember where to go and find information and so forth. So completely different user experience. And then nobody have to train me to converse with a bot as an employee. It's a natural conversation. The chatbot can understand that and respond to my requests. And more importantly, when I have questions, I don't have to browse through a bunch of information to find an answer to that. I ask my questions, and the relevant information, either from my data in the system or from the question and answer library, will be returned to me. So basically, you are providing an assistance that is on demand when an employee needs it, rather than taking them to an FAQ page or where they have to go through various things to identify what matches with their question and get an answer, right? You're providing on-demand assistance with pretty much zero training and a much enhanced and an engaging user experience, right? So that's all the key value propositions for chatbot, especially if you are working on any business case to justify the investment that is needed in chatbots, then these are the 3 key areas for you to focus on, okay? All right. Now, in terms of what is currently available for PeopleSoft chatbots, pretty much everything that I showed you in terms of the within the digital assistant, those are the chatbot skills that are available. And those are modular. So you can see in here absence, benefits, directory, company directory, payroll, recruiting, expenses, and requisition. And at a very high level, I have provided a summary of what the chatbot can do, what each of this chatbot skill can do. Of course, you can train it to do much more than that, but as delivered out of the box, these are the activities that the chatbot skill can do. And we just saw a sample set of information, a very small subset of this in our demo. Okay. And for PeopleSoft customers, depending upon what product pillar you are in, there are some minimum system requirements. For HCM customers, 9.2 and Image 31 onwards, and Tools version 857 onwards are supported for deploying these chatbots. Okay. All right. With that said, let me go further. Digital Assistant, when PeopleSoft Chatbot functionality was originally released, those were the individual skills were handled or used on its own as part of different modules. But what you saw today in the demo is the Digital Assistant functionality where an employee doesn't have to remember and go to different modular skills to ask their questions. They don't have to go and find a benefit assistant to ask a question or a payroll assistant to ask a question. They basically go to this one unified window that's called Employee Digital Assistant, and they have questions regardless of what module functionality, and the digital assistant will know, depending upon the question, that where to route it to, which chatbot skill is best placed to answer that. And that orchestration happens by the digital assistant. So that's what we saw today. So this is already available for customers to use. Now, what are some of the frequently asked questions that we are getting from customers, right, when it comes to chatbot? So first, the skills that we saw today are functional modular skills. What I mean by that is those skills are, when we talk about benefit assistant, payroll assistant, they are built to handle the functionalities within the delivered modules, right? However, you can expand those skills to be more business process oriented rather than just module dependent, right? What I mean by that is an example that I said. A benefit skill does not need to be limited to what functionality you use in PeopleSoft benefits. A benefit skill is intended to be a benefit assistant answering any question an employee may have about their benefits. It doesn't matter whether you use it in PeopleSoft or not. If you wanted to answer an employee a certain way, the skills can be trained to do that. All of the functionality that we saw today is powered using an Oracle Cloud functionality called Oracle Digital Assistant. So Oracle Digital Assistant is the engine that makes this happen, where that's the engine that receives the employee questions, like whatever employee types in, understands those questions and converts them into essentially what is the information to look for in PeopleSoft, and fetch that information and provide it to the employee. So all the info is in PeopleSoft and being requested by the employee, but the translation of understanding what an employee is asking in the natural language and integrating with PeopleSoft to get that information is handled by this Oracle Digital Assistant, which is a platform cloud service that has a monthly subscription. So essentially, to use this chatbots, as a customer, you will need to subscribe to the cloud service and link it to PeopleSoft, right? That's the process. We will go through the actual process of deploying it, but the overarching prerequisite is you need to have a subscription to Oracle Digital Assistant to make use of this chatbot functionality. There is no additional licensing needed on the PeopleSoft side. PeopleSoft PeopleTool customers, you already are licensed for using all these delivered chatbot skills. There is no additional server or infrastructure requirement. One thing to keep in mind is your PeopleSoft system should be able to link and talk to the Oracle Digital Assistant. So some customers might be running their PeopleSoft entirely in-house. It may not be accessible outside your network, but the integration link from your PeopleSoft system will need to be able to link with the Oracle Digital Assistant Cloud service for this service to work. So it's a configuration that typically the IT department understands and performs, but there is no additional infrastructure requirements in terms of new hardware, new software to do that. The overall installation process when it comes to the system administration activity, that doesn't take very long. It's less than a day's work to get that all set up and running. Now, the common mode, the method that an employee interact with this chatbots is using the widget within the PeopleSoft application. The small green thing that was on the right-hand side bottom of my screen, that widget is the chatbot widget that allows the employee to converse with the chatbot. And that widget, the method the employee converses with a chatbot is called channel, and that's a default channel. However, there are other options available where we could enable SMS-based conversation with chatbots. Employees can use messaging. Those are additional options that are available using other third-party services as well. So I'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of it, but think of it, those options are available as well. Security is one of the very important questions we always get from customers. How does the security of the chatbot work? So essentially, the chatbots are intended as end user functionality, like you are rolling out to your employees. So all the information that is shown is specific to their employee. An employee will not be able to see any information for other employees, except in one scenario where we talk about the company directory, where if you want to check who reports to who in terms of the org structure, then an employee can query that, because the purpose of company directory is to provide that information or contact information for certain employees, right? So if you use company directory, then that is the only area where an employee can see other person's information, that too what specific information you allow them to see. Apart from that, everything else is employee specific. There is no other information shared. There isn't any chatbots available for administrators or managers, etc., because I would say it's more, the larger the audience is, essentially you get a cost benefit when you use chatbots for addressing a larger audience compared to your managers and admins. In addition to everything that is delivered out of the box, everything that you saw today, the chatbot framework comes with a full comprehensive toolkit for you to build even more bots. Let's say you have a custom bolt-on functionality that you are running in PeopleSoft application, and if you want to have a chatbot skill that would be an assistant for that bolt-on functionality, then you can build it. There is a full toolkit available to build your own chatbots as well. Okay. If there are any more questions that is not covered here and you want to know more about chatbot functionalities, please feel free to type in as well. Now, moving on to the next topic, which is the deployment process. So when we talk about the output, what we saw in the demo is the outcome, final outcome. After the setup is done, how the chatbot is used. But what happens before that? How do you go about deploying it? The first activity is done by your system administrators. As I said, for this chatbot and digital assistant functionality to work, you need to have the PeopleSoft system be able to talk to the Oracle Digital Assistant Cloud system. So there are some setup tasks to be done on the PeopleSoft side and the digital assistant side to make the connection happen. And that's what is listed here. And this is FYI, if in case you are discussing with your internal IT teams and want to give an overview around what is needed, this provides that information. I wouldn't spend too much time in here because it gets very technical when we talk about system admin activities. All right, so this is here for your reference. Now, let's say your system administrators have done the groundwork to make your PeopleSoft system talk to the Oracle Digital Assistant, and once that setup is done, let's say as a functional business user, you are ready to get started with deploying these chatbots. Now, what's the process of getting these chatbots deployed and ready for your production environment where you can roll it out to your employees, right? What's the process? And that's what we want to spend some time on discussing in detail. Before I talk about the detailed process step by step, I also want to quickly touch upon some of the terminologies that when it comes to chatbots and chat lingos that are specific to the chatbot world, that you need to be aware so that you can understand the process of using it, right? So first is chatbot, and it's also referred to as skill. And I have been mentioning it as chatbot skill all along. What it is that's the engine. That's the engine to say when there is a chatbot skill for benefits, payroll, absence, those are like packaged entities where they could address any of your question related to a particular area, right? So the chatbot skill is a sort of a packaged entity to service a particular function. The way the user interacts with that skill is called channel. And in the PeopleSoft example, the green widget on the right-hand bottom corner is a channel that I used to invoke the chatbot skills. Anything that I typed in as questions are called utterances. The utterances terminology means I'm actually typing in something that I want to get out of the chat or that I'm looking for a response from the chatbot. So the purpose of that Oracle Digital Assistant engine is essentially to read those utterances and and uses what is called as a natural language processor or NLP framework to understand those utterances and try to understand what I'm asking and decipher that information. Because let's say, if you remember, I asked a question, what is my dental deduction? So in that question, there are two key things, dental and deduction. So the benefit plan I'm looking for is dental plan, and the information I'm looking for is deduction. So the chatbot uses the natural language processing to decipher that information and send that question to PeopleSoft to retrieve that information and sends it back onto as a response to the user. So the two important words in my question, the first one, what I'm trying to do is intent. I'm trying to get the deduction for my dental plan. So it deciphers that intent, what the user wants to achieve. What are the words that are important to answer the question? Let's say I'm trying to get my dental cost, so I'm trying to get my cost of the dental plan. So the plan type being dental becomes an entity. You could break down any question like that. So one of my question was show my payslip. So payslip is the intent. I want to see my payslip. There isn't any specific entity in that, but let's say I wanted to submit an absence request. Submitting the absence request is the intent that I'm trying to achieve. But to do that intent, there were a lot of data that I need to provide. I need to provide the start date, end date, absence reason, etc. All those becomes data entities. And all that information is used by the chatbot to respond to the user. And the chatbot then also prompts to do what next, right? When you're asking for some question, it tries to provide you the information and sees if did it provide the right information? Do you want to do more? So for example, I asked a question, show my beneficiary designation. Then I asked a question, update my beneficiaries. It gave me options to say, okay, can I take you there? Or this is the contact details. Do you want me to take me there or call them, right? It continues to prompts. So these are the terminologies that you need to be aware about the chatbots itself so that you will know better understand when we talk about the deployment process, what are the things you need to do when it comes to handling these different terminologies in chatbot, okay? So I'll explain this a little bit better in the next one when we talk about the deployment process. So I guess this is the critical portion of the session itself, right? How to go about using these delivered chatbot skills and how to get them deployed and roll it out to your production environment to your employees, right? So it first starts with downloading the delivered skills. Now, all these chatbot skills that are delivered for different modules, they're all part of a repository called a skill store. And that's similar to your app store in your Android and iPhones, right? There is a store, there is an online repository where the skills are uploaded. And once you have an Oracle Digital Assistant tenancy for you, your company, you basically download the skills. You can search, find the PeopleSoft skills that you want to implement and download it. Once you download it, you create a custom version of it. You basically extend it and create, extend or clone it and create your own version of it. The reason being, just like any of your PeopleSoft functionality, you don't want to update what is delivered. You're basically creating a next version of it to update and personalize it. Now, then you basically go through a process of customizing and enhancing the skill. Now, first question that many customers have is, do you have to update it? The answer is potentially no. Technically no, because whatever you saw today is all delivered out of the box. However, 99% of the cases, you would have to customize and update it because the delivered functionality would work in an ideal scenario, but there might be many variations of questions, the ways your employees might ask them, and many variations of answers, etc. that needs to be tailored, right? So a delivered skill is not production ready. A delivered skill is a template that you can make it production ready, right? That's the process we're going to talk about. So what all you do to update that skill, right? Update it and personalize it. So once you do that, I'll talk about what are all the options. But before that, once you have updated your skill, you basically deploy it and start using it. Once you start using it, there is a very elaborate insights framework as part of the Oracle Digital Assistant platform that shows a lot of information about how that skill is being used, what are the questions being asked, where the questions are not getting answered correctly by the chatbot, where the conversations are ending abruptly. You can review all of that information and continue to update the skill and enhance it. Now, let's talk about that customization or a personalization process, right? I would rather call it a personalization because when you talk about your chatbot skills, you're basically talking about a process where you take what is delivered out of the box and make it your own. So you're essentially personalizing the skill. Now, there is a different levels or extents to which you can personalize the skills. I'll talk through all of that. But what all is part of that personalization? Let's sort of dig in deep in here, right? So let's go through one by one. So the first thing is utterances. So I explained utterances as anything that a user types in, right? They want to do something, so they type in any questions, any keywords, anything that the user types in that window is an utterance. So every delivered chatbot skills comes trained with a predefined set of utterances. So let's say the chatbot skill that's allowed to show my payslip will have 20 different ways that is already trained to answer that question. I can say, show my payslip. I can say, can you please show my payslip? Where is my payslip? When is my payslip? Like, when is my next payslip due? Things like that. There are various ways I could, instead of payslip, I could use paycheck or I could use pay stub. So there are various ways I can ask that question. However, the delivered chatbot is probably trained around 15 to 20 different ways. You can ask a particular, you can ask a question in different ways that you want to achieve a particular thing. Now, you need to review that list of the delivered set of utterances and make sure it sort of addresses all of the ways that is typically asked in your organization. A good example, terminologies I use is, let's say, I went in and said, show me my beneficiary designations. That is very technical term, like beneficiary designation. Employees might be using like, show me my 401k nominees, right? Or show me my saving plan beneficiaries. So a nominee could be an alternate term that might be used in your organization instead of a beneficiary. So if that's the case, then the chatbot need to be trained on that, right? So you basically add more utterances to the list and train the chatbot so that it can answer it when there are questions using that keywords. it can link it to the right intent, right? So those are some of the examples where you would want to work with the utterances. Better the quality of the utterance, better the response from the chatbot. It can easily link to what a user is trying to ask and link it to the correct functionality. So this is where you notice when I typed in some of the examples, I couldn't get the response the first time. I had to slightly vary my question so I could get to what I wanted to show you. So that all comes down to the quality of utterances. I'll show you, there are some screenshots as part of the slide deck, how that is done. I'll show you that as well. But that's the first and foremost thing you do to the chatbot. Essentially, you train it to answer multiple variants of how some information can be asked. Second is intent, what a chatbot can do. Now, you can do it in two ways. One, you can look at what are all the delivered things a chatbot can do and build more things to enhance its capabilities, right? So for example, in one of the slides I showed you for every chatbot skills what it can do. Now let's say in the payroll module, we saw that the chatbot can show my deductions, earnings, it can show my bank accounts. But let's say you want to use a chatbot to show something that is not delivered. For example, I'm just trying to think an example. Let's say you want the chatbot to collect, provide an ability for employee to submit general deduction or one-time deductions. And the chatbot is not built to do that. You can build your integrations to make chatbot to do that. That's more of an extent to extending the chatbots, but you can do much simpler things as well. Let's say I asked a question, when is the next open enrollment? It gave me a response. But you could train the chatbots with answering more questions like that by providing, by integrating to say where to find that information and add more intents to your skills. So essentially adding more ability for chatbots to do other things than what it is delivered for. Again, PeopleSoft would continue to enhance the chatbot skills, so you don't have to keep on yourself enhancing it, but you do have an option to do that. Or the example I said is you can build your own skill to a complete bolt-on custom functionality as well. That's also an option. The third area is very important area, and this is where there isn't a delivered FAQ library that comes with the PeopleSoft chatbot, but customers can build their own. So let's say when you want to deploy these chatbots for your benefits department or payroll department, like your benefit assistant or payroll assistant, the first and foremost thing you need to do is look at the history for the last year or last 6 months. What are the common questions your benefits team or payroll team has been getting from your employees? Rationalize that, standardize that, and create a question and answer library. And that would address most of the things employees are going to ask as well in future, right? So that's going to be a key value add of deploying these chatbots, where you are not just focused on providing the PeopleSoft functionality to them, but answering their day-to-day questions that may or may not be dependent on the PeopleSoft system. For example, especially during certain times like year-end or open enrollment period, many questions may be related to their plans, how the plans are structured, rather than anything to do with PeopleSoft. So they might be asking questions around how they can, what's the benefit of choosing one plan versus another, and so forth, right? So all those can be addressed via question and answer libraries, right? So you can create your own library of questions. It's a simple Excel sheet and upload it to the chatbot, train it, and make the chatbot answer those questions, right? So a huge value add when it comes to what the chatbots can do is question and answers. Then a little bit more advanced, if we go a step further, is what we call as a dialogue flow. Essentially altering and personalizing the sequence of how things chatbot responds, right? In some cases, it's pretty straightforward, or you could take it to a very advanced level as well. What I mean by that is, let's say a chatbot, for absence chatbot, when I asked a question about what is my vacation balance. It showed my vacation balance, and it probably prompted me to do two things. Maybe we want to book an absence, or maybe one other option. If I wanted to show another option there, right, I can add that as part of this dialog flow. So what the chatbot prompts after it responds can all be controlled using the dialog flow, and you have full control of managing that. You typically will work with the dialog flow once you have started using the chatbots and see how it is being used, where an employee is ending the conversation, what you want the employee to do next. Once that information is all there, you then start working with your dialog flows. And finally, channels. Now, channels are the option I mentioned earlier, that channels are available as part of the delivered functionality. The default channel is the widget on the right-hand side. However, there are other options like SMS gateways where employees can interact. So you could explore further channels like that. Like the ODA platform supports channels like Microsoft Teams, Slack as a collaborative tool, but those are other things that customers can expand as well, right? PeopleSoft delivered chatbots can support either the web channel, which is the widget, or the SMS channel. Those are the two channels that are supported out of the box. Okay. All right. That covers the core key areas of what I wanted to discuss in terms of the process to deploy it. What I have done in the slide deck is there is a lot of information available as part of the slide deck. So if you are interested in taking this step further and having more time to spend on this, you can review this information as well. I do have another 7-8 minutes. So if there are any more questions, please do post your questions on either the Zoom chat or on the Pathable app chat window. But unless there are questions, I will continue to show what is in the slide deck. So what I've done here is shown you examples of how those personalizations are done in the Oracle Digital Assistant platform. So what you see here is I spoke about enhancing the utterances. So this is the screen where you actually go and do it, right? Reviewing. So for example, in here, I'm looking at this delivered intent, getting dependent beneficiary, and there is a list of around 43 different ways that that particular intent can be invoked. Are my children covered in a vision? Are my children covered in the dental plan? Are my children covered in the my plan? So there are various ways that is already pre-populated. So you basically review this list and you can type in to add to this list, or like you can manually type it in on that page to add more questions to that list, or you could also download that whole thing into as a CSV file, add more to that list and upload it back so that the chatbot can be trained with more utterances, right? So here's an example of how it is being done. There are ability to enable autocomplete so that when an employee starts typing in, their sentences can be filled with some options, so makes it easier for employees to ask the questions. There is ability to run utterance quality reports where it will show you where the utterances may be incorrectly mapped to the wrong intents. It's just an like a aid to assist you with rightly mapping the intents and so forth, right? Similarly, working with intents and entities. Some basic things like, for example, benefit plan. Let me show you an example here. You may not be using all the delivered benefit plans in the system. You may be only using a small portion of it. So you could review that list of benefit plans available and remove things that you're not using. Same with if there are multiple information to update, you can download it as a CSV file, update it, and upload it back as well. That option is available for intents as well. So these are some of the ways you can easily personalize the chatbots. Another good example is there is something called as an answer intent, where you could answer a question with some static text rather than any data from the system. So you don't have to think about building integrations if the question can be answered with a static text. So in this example, the question is benefit expiry date. And the answer is could be a static information. Employee sponsored benefit expires on the last calendar day of the month when the employee is terminated, and you provide a link to your benefits policy there. So regardless of whichever way they ask about how their benefit, when their benefit expires, it is a static information. It's not personalized to an employee. It is generic information. So you basically loaded it as a static answer in here. So these are few ways you can expand the capabilities of what the chatbots can do. And this is how that's displayed. When does benefit expire? It displays the answer that you have configured. Question and answer, as I said, a very powerful framework. I'll show you an example. So it's simple like an Excel document that you have. Let's say I provided here some of the examples of Medicare, various questions that employees may have on Medicare and what is the answers you want to give. You upload that and train the chatbot, right? So I'll just go to the page where you upload it and run the training. And so these are all the process of training it. So when an employee asks a question, what is Medicare? It basically gives all the various things that match their question. Employee can browse through and find the answer that is more relevant to them. So essentially, more on-demand assistance to an employee question rather than a generic FAQ library, right? It basically maps what is the employee trying to ask and finds the questions relevant to them and shows to them, right? So this is a very powerful functionality of the chatbot platform itself. Okay. And I discussed about some examples of dialog flows. I'll just show you what I meant by that. So let me just skip all of this. So let's say the delivered way when the chatbot responds, let's say it's giving me 3 options when it is not able to find a particular question, and I have on the right hand side updated it to give more options that employees might want to see when they are not able to find what they were looking for. So that's an example of changing the dialog flow from 3 options to 5 options that are relevant, right? So more detailed in terms of how it is done is part of the slide deck if you're interested in that information. But just want to quickly show you what is in this slide deck if you're interested. And then I spoke about the insights, which is once you start using the chatbot, you get to learn about how the chatbot is performing. Is it meeting the employee requirements? Is it meeting the demands of your organization, right? So here are some examples. So for instance, a graphic around what are the intents that are getting frequently used. For the benefits one, I'm showing an example. Plan detail is the one that is quite heavily invoked. Independent beneficiary, plan provider are slightly less. There is number of unresolved items as well coming through. So that should be ideally be low, right? You wouldn't want your chatbot to not resolve some of the things. So when I click further, I get to see how that is getting in. People are trying to, more employees are trying to look for their savings plan. Many are looking for their benefit plans in general. And not just that, the insights can also record and track all the history of the conversation. So you can see where the information is, what sort of questions being asked, what sort of answers being provided, etc. And it also finally provides you the ability to retrain the bot. And just give me a second. Retrain the bot with where it is failing. So for example, when there is an utterance benefit expiration, it is going unresolved, you can train it to the right intent. When they ask about benefit expiration, map it to getting the benefit expiry date being the right item. So that's an example where you retrain out of the insights. So all of this information is available as part of the chatbot slide deck that is associated. This is just a recap of the deployment process in here and the channels that are available. So that pretty much wraps up my session. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, any other items, and need more information about the whole chatbot deployment process. Feel free to reach out. You have the contact information. If not, have a great rest of the conference. Thank you very much for all of your time.